Our draft does do a bit of analysis on All You Can Be One quick draft, looking at what the bots are drafting, looking at the difference from Premier Draft, and just generally seeing what's going on with the quick drafts themselves. I'm going to start off with a bit of look at the archetypes, and then we'll look at some of the way that the bots are picking cards in a moment. So, split down for the different two-color archetypes. I think we've generally decided as a community that we are looking at a two-color format. So we really don't want to be splashing very often and don't want those 3 or 4 color decks very often at all, less than probably your average format. And really, everything seems pretty similar. I've got a couple of standouts though. First of all, Selesnya seems to be a lot better in quick draft than it is in Premier Draft, 2.6 percentage points so far. And I think at the minute, you can kind of see this in the colours that we've got here, in the numbers we've got here. We've got Gruul and Boros in Premier Draft, which are the ones I'm wanting to draft the most. And then you've got things like Selesnya, Orzhov, although I'm not huge on Orzhov, and a little bit of Azorius as well in kind of a second tier. Whereas I think in quick draft, we've got Selesnya is really up there in the top tier with Gruul, and Boros has actually taken over Gruul, and to be fair, Boros has overtaken Gruul as well. And that's just what we're seeing. We're seeing some of the bad archetypes do even worse. So we've got Dimir is doing worse in quick draft by a significant chunk. To be at 49% on 79 users is really significant. Izzet's doing quite a lot worse as well. Azorius is doing worse for some reason. Maybe the bots are picking up some of the key parts of that deck, but that's something to bear in mind because I do quite like the Azorius deck and things like that. And then, like I say, Boros is doing slightly better for whatever reason, and Gruul is doing about the same, it seems. So, definitely still Gruul and Boros are top. Selesnya is up there with them as well. And then we've still got Orzhov kind of in that next tier down as well. The bad decks, though, are still quite bad. If we look at a bit of a comparison, so what I've got here is I've got the average last seen at in Premier Draft, and then I've ranked them here, and then the average last seen at in Quick Draft, and then ranked them here and looked at the difference. So what we're looking at here is where the bots are picking cards differently to the players in Premier Draft. So bots will be picking things more often or less often than the players in Premier Draft. Reminder, average last seen at is the basically a measure of how far on the pack it gets, around the pod it gets. In Quick Draft, we've got this Monument to Perfection is going pretty much first pick. It is a rare, but in Premier Draft, because it's quite a bad card, then it's going a lot later. And the rest of these stats on this sheet, and you'll be able to find the sheet pinned in the comments as well, are all based on Quick Draft data. It's just the Premier Draft data I've got here. Now, there's a lot of things going on here. First of all, we've got the rares in here. I don't like to have the rares in with this analysis, but I do include it for completeness. And also, there's a lot of cards where we don't have any data at all. So if we go to just take out the rares and mythics and go just down to the commons and uncommons, I've got the average last seen at data here for just the commons and uncommons. And what we'll see at the top of this list is going to be the cards where the average last seen at is high, so it's not seen to be very good by quick drafters, but the bots are picking it higher than the quick drafters. So I would say the average last seen at for Premier is going to be a measure of a better card. So if it's picked higher by players, it's probably going to be better, and it is a measure of how well the card is doing. So what we're saying, top end here, is the bots are picking faster than players. And we've got a lot of blue cards here, which the bots are picking higher than players, and I think a lot of players aren't liking blue cards. I do see blue very open in a lot of drafts. I don't hate blue. There's some very good arguments as to why it's not very good, but I do prefer blue over black. I know I'm a little bit in the minority there, but I just really don't like many of the black archetypes, whereas I do like blue-white, and I like the blue-red archetype if it's open, and I think you can do stuff with that. I've tried to do a bit of color coordination on here, just on the colors. Didn't quite work for everything, but you can just so you can spot things a little bit higher. So these are cards which the bots are picking very high, and maybe this is why blue-white isn't going well, because the bots are picking it a lot higher than they are than the people do in normal drafts. If we go to the bottom end of the scale, so these are cards which the bots are picking a lot lower. So these are things which are more likely to wheel. I've got a lot of green cards down here, and this might be a big reason why green-white's doing so well compared to it is in Quick Draft, in Premier Draft rather. Some of them I'm not a big fan on. Unnatural Restoration, I think it's just fine. It's a cool card, but I don't think it's what I want to do in this set. Incubation Sac is a card which I'm quite happy to draft, actually. I do really like that. I think it does some good stuff, especially in green-red. And I think the idea was it was supposed to be a green-red or a green-blue card, but we don't really see much green-blue. Sheoldred's Edict and Prosthetic Injector are picked a lot lower by the bots, But neither of these are particularly great if I actually look at the game in hand win rate, and I will compare where the bot picks it compared to the game in hand win rate in a moment. But we've got some really good cards here which are not being picked by the bots. Noticeably, not very many red cards down this end, so the bots are picking the red cards roughly about right. And then if we go to compare, so here we're comparing the average last seen at by the bots with the game in hand win rate in quick draft. Notice that these ones, a lot of these ones here, don't have data for this yet because it's still quite early and they're not really being seen. But again, these are cards that are getting picked quite highly by the bots, so maybe people just aren't managing to draft them, so they're not playing with them. But if we look here, so we'll start with Serum Core Chimera, which is a card which I do quite like. It looks quite good, but it's not performing well in Premier Draft or in Quick Draft. But again, I think that more important information is going to be down at the bottom end of this. So a bit like in Premier Draft, we looked at that last week in the video where I was looking at Premier Draft analysis, and I'll link that in the comments as well. Hazardous Blast is picked really low for the game in hand win rate, but I don't think you need very many of these. Really, you probably only want one in a deck, maybe two in certain decks, but probably looking at one. We've got Crawling Chorus is being picked really low by the bots. It almost wheels a lot of the time, so that is probably a big reason why the green-white decks are doing so well. Crawling Chorus is really, really good. I think I saw the Orzhov decks doing well as well, and I think it's really good in either of those decks. Don't really want in white-red. It's fine in white-red, but it's definitely a lot better in green-white. So that's probably a huge reason why. I mean, look at this. It's got a 60.1% game-in-hand win rate, and it's wheeling more than half the time. So that's just absolutely incorrect. Zeal's Conviction's a little bit different. I think the game-in-hand win rate is still fine, but it's nowhere near as good, and it is definitely wheeling a lot of the time. I'm not a big fan of that one. But it does give you a bit of a picture that's going on here. You can see a lot of more red cards down this end of the spectrum here, down this end of the list. So maybe there's maybe something to be said about that. Anyway, it's just a very quick snapshot of what's going on. I hope you do like the video. If you do enjoy it, obviously a subscribe is always thankful. But other than that, thanks for watching the video, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.